Hello, and welcome back to the Lex and Lace podcast. We are back. It's been an interlude of about 3 months, one could say, and just wanted to welcome you back to season 2. What do we have coming up this season? We have guests, of course, and we have more talk about law, fashion, and AI. What have I been up to since I've been away? So, as you may or may not know, I was working a super intense job. I was a university professor at a private university in Botswana. I have since moved on from that tenure, as one could say. That was super intense in the sense that I was working extremely long hours. It took up a lot of my day. And thus, I took the decision to sort of take a break from podcasting, sort of pause my season. Also, I had 15 episodes out. So, that's a really long season. I don't know if my next season is, I don't really don't know if this season is going to be that long. I would want it to, because 15 weeks is a really good run, but it kind of just depends on scheduling and stuff. Depends if I have the time for it, really. I love doing this, and I love, every week having an objective of okay, it's Monday. That means that I need to think about, editing, guests, stories. I loved having that routine where I could just be able to do that, wake up every week and be like, okay, it's Monday, I need to start thinking about what I want to record, or it's Monday, I need to start thinking about having a guest over, or it's Monday and I need to edit. I think those are things those are the things that I really enjoy about having this podcast in the first place. And I miss doing that. I think it was really sad that I was essentially so tired from my job that I could not really find the time to then do what I love, which is to produce this podcast and to talk to everybody and give my observations and my opinions about things, because I really truly do enjoy doing that. So I think, yes, more guests, but for a second I think my that the season kind of got overridden by by the guests. I love all my guests, and obviously I'm gonna have episodes with them, and you will be hearing them very soon. And but I think that I want to use this first episode, this welcome back episode, to really just get back to what the podcast is primarily about, which is law, fashion, and AI. These are things. There have been a lot of advancements since I've been away, by the way. I will not be talking about all of them because other things are just not relevant. But yeah, there's a lot of things I can talk about now that I can really think about it. I'm in the tech space, especially, things are crazy. Um, yeah, that's really it. I've just really missed this. I've really missed talking, just to talk and just be able to share my observations. So I cannot wait to do more of this. And obviously, I love my guests, and I love everyone who's given me so much support and has been yes, please, when's the next episode coming out? And it's guys, it's coming out. Wait a minute, wait a second. It's coming out. And it is really coming out this time. Don't worry. She's coming out. I'm also excited for Pride Month because that will allow me to have more queer guests on. So yeah. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, I'm back. Let's just, move on to the next segment. And we're back. And what we're going to be talking about today is it's a little bit of law and tech, really. If you may or may not know, there was the case of, I think it's called KGM versus Meta. So that's a case that happened, I think it was in November. It wasn't too long ago. It wasn't even November. It was like earlier this year, sometime earlier this year, where essentially what happened was that a California jury made a historic ruling against both Meta and Google, and they essentially found them responsible for social media addiction, and they were responsible for such because it caused this young woman named Kaylee, who's like now in her 20s, essentially depression, anxiety, as well as like body dysmorphia. And she basically started using social media compulsively as a small child, and she stated that she started using YouTube at the age of 6 and Instagram at the age of 9. And the case that they were arguing essentially that the way that these platforms are designed are addictive. So it's a social media addiction case. So in this case, the jury awarded Kaylee $6 million. So $3 million is compensatory damages, and the other $3 million is punitive damages. Where apparently the split will be like 70-30. So it's Meta will pay 70% and Google will shoulder 30% of that cost. This is a landmark case because it's the first time a jury has like essentially said that apps can be treated as defective products and essentially deliberately engineered to exploit the developing brains of kids. So it being like a thing where it's like the way that this app or these apps are designed is fundamentally changing how kids' brains work and operate, and it's because these apps are addictive. They're addictive. And for those who wish to know, the case wasn't specifically focused on what she saw online, but how they were designed. So things like infinite scroll, notifications, autoplay, which are all things that are built in to be addictive. Even how bright everything is. Like if you're on social media, you'll see how like bright and all the colors. That's why sometimes like it's there was a time in my life where I would use my phone on grayscale because it makes it very boring. Like you don't want to be on your phone if it's in grayscale, like at all. And it's essentially saying that the companies knew that they had these addictive features on there and they were built specifically to be addictive to have people on there. But they essentially didn't do anything to protect like young users from using their platforms. So again, Kaylee testified that she stopped engaging with her family, developed anxiety and depression by the age of 10, and became obsessed with her appearance using Instagram filters, and was later essentially diagnosed with body dysmorphia. And she also testified that apparently her longest single day on Instagram was 16 hours. Do you know how crazy that is? That means that, like, she woke up, she had 8 hours of sleep, woke up, and scrolled the whole day. Whole day scrolling. Madness. I have lots of thoughts on this. Right now, Meta and Google have both vowed to appeal, and Meta has said that teen health is profoundly complex and it can't specifically be linked to one app. Google, who owns YouTube, by the way, is saying that YouTube is a responsibly built streaming platform. It's not social media. So, YouTube Shorts is a thing, and that has infinite scroll. The way YouTube is built, like I have so many thoughts on. I have so many thoughts on this. I was previously not on a lot of social media. I was on social media platforms since for a young time. So it's like what I think I got like social media when I was like what 11, 12, which is young. By the way, they say that their apps are not supposed to have anybody under the age of 13 on them. Lies, because Kaylee and I were both on it. But that aside, you can't say like I deleted social media, but now I'm back on like Instagram. I deleted other stuff like Snapchat and stuff because I'm a big age. What am I doing? But YouTube is definitely addictive. Yeah, like after a while, there's not much to see, but it's like if you're on shorts, infinitely scrolling, or even Like there will be like you open the YouTube app and there'll be something that you want to watch. Like that's just how it's built. It's like supposed to be attractive, or a lot of it is also rage baity. So the platforms themselves are literally built in for you to be on there as much as possible. Like don't lie to anybody. But I think what came out of it was that parents and campaigners are essentially celebrating this like enough is enough moment, and the verdict could influence hundreds of similar cases moving through the courts right now. And I think the moment was compared to sort of like the big tobacco like lawsuits of the 1990s, where it was like the way that big tobacco was advertising was like to entice children to smoke, and those lawsuits essentially were like, don't do that, you can't do that, that's extremely irresponsible. And we will get onto this, but there was also been a New Mexico case against Meta literally like the day before, the day after the verdict. So, which is kind of crazy. So, it seems like that specific case was kind of like a breaking point in public sentiment towards social media, and like one juror was even saying that we wanted them to feel it, we wanted them to realize that what they're doing is unacceptable. And from a legal standpoint, I think this is really good. But I don't think it goes far enough. But at the end of the day, the courts are there to interpret the laws. They're not there to make them. But I, this is my, this is mind you, this is my personal opinion. I think 6 million damages is like nothing. I think, as I think one of the witnesses or even one of the lawyers was like, they brought in like an M&M jar filled with like yeah like filled with M&Ms, and they were essentially like, one of these is what like you're asking them to pay in comparison to how much money they have. Like these are like $1 trillion companies. Like they have money, and you're asking them to pay damages of 3 million. I think the lawyers, from what I've been reading around, like most of my sources are, uh, most of my sources are like what like traditional media. But then I also looked at other like the other ways that people interpreted it, right? So I was also looking at Taylor Lorenz and her interpretation of it. She was like, this doesn't go far enough. Taylor Lorenz can be controversial for a bunch of different reasons, but when it comes to her tech journalism, she is on the ball, like 100%. And when I was watching her video about it, before even thinking about doing an episode, she was very much like, they still won because they are not being forced to change anything, nothing realistically. They are just essentially, from both of these verdicts, I'm gonna get onto the other case, but from both of these verdicts, essentially like 3 million damages, 6 million total, and it's gonna be split between you and Google. Like, what is Meta really like? What is that really gonna do? What would actually help is states actually like countries, if countries actually want to protect children from the internet, they need to have laws that stop the control that these social media companies have on our lives. That is what they need to do. There's nothing behind that. And it's not going to be these like age verification laws that are going to help you. Like that just comes off as censorship. And that's one other thing that like I was gathering from what Taylor Renz was saying, specifically in the US, is how they wish to repeal like Section 230. I'll explain that more in depth, but all I can say about that in this specific section is that if you're going to have laws, if you're going to want to protect children from the internet, or even people from the internet, you're gonna have to have laws that specifically make sense, and make sense by actually punishing and urging and forcing these social media companies to change how their platforms work. It is not through trying to censor the internet, because I'll get on to censoring the internet. When it comes to this, I feel like I have so much to say and not enough time. Like, you're not gonna censor the internet in order under the guise of protecting children from what they are shown on the internet, because if these platforms are not punished for what they actually do, and that means not giving them a buy like a payout. Like this, you can't just be like, oh, pay damages. No, we want specific performance. We want I I I don't know if they've had if I don't know the full case. I haven't read the full case document. I'm gonna be real. I didn't do that. But if they didn't have some form of like tech specialist there as an expert witness in any, which they likely did, I would assume that they did, because otherwise then this is all just boohickey. If they have not come along and said that, hey, these platforms operate in this way, in order to protect children, they should have been doing this, this, and this, which I'm 1,000% sure is what happened, and hence why we got this verdict in the first place, this ruling. If that is not what has happened, then the judge should absolutely be like, listen, even though they've awarded you this, we're going to take the advice from what these like tech experts have told us, because again, the judge doesn't know everything. When it comes to certain things, they're not experts, right? They don't know everything. So it's like, if we're going to take this advice and you're going to implement it, if you say that you are actually a platform that is actively trying to protect children, which they're not. So yeah, I guess that's a win for Kaylee and them, but if nothing is gonna come from it and they're just gonna, do quick fixes, then what the hell is the point? Like, what have we done? Like, what is it? Because what that shows me is that they can just pay something out. They can have hundreds of these like social media addiction cases and just pay 3 million here, 3 million there, 1 million here, 1 million there, and then go about their business. They probably make that money in like 2 hours. Please. What did he say? I remember Mark Zuckerberg went to Congress and he was like, Senator, we run ads. Yeah, they run ads and they can do what they want, essentially. Next segment. And we're back. In this segment, we're going to be looking at the New Mexico case, because if you remember, in the same week, a jury in New Mexico found Meta liable for exposing children to sexual predators. Experts say that this marks a real breaking point in public sentiment towards social media. So, basically, in the same week that we had the California jury case about social media addiction, we had another case going on in New Mexico where... Let me just read this. So this is from the New Mexico Department of Justice, so NMDOJ. This is from their website. Verbatim, this is what I'm reading. So, in a historic victory for the New Mexico Department of Justice, today the jury in the landmark state of New Mexico versus Meta Platforms. Yeah, in the US you say versus. This is in March 24, 2026. Trial found that Meta liable for misleading consumers about the safety of its platforms and endangering children. With this verdict, Mexico becomes the first state in the nation to prevail at trial against a major tech company for harming young people. The jury ordered Meta to pay the maximum penalty under the law of $5,000 per violation, totaling, drumroll please, $375 million in civil penalties for violating New Mexico's consumer protection laws. The jury found Meta liable for both claims brought by the state of New Mexico under the Unfair Practices Act. So, quote, the jury's verdict is a historic victory for every child and family who has paid the price for Meta's choice to put profits over kids' safety, said New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres. And Meta executives knew their products harmed children, disregarded warnings from their own employees, and lied to the public about what they knew. Today, the jury joined families, educators, and child safety experts in saying enough is enough. They also go on to say that New Mexico is proud to be the first state to hold Meta accountable in court for misleading parents, enabling child exploitation, and harming kids. And in the next phase of this legal proceeding, we will seek additional financial penalties as well as court-mandated changes to Meta's platforms that offer stronger protections for children. You see what I mean? Court-mandated changes, specific performance of things. Because how are you going to violate these things and just expect to pay out? No, changes. But that's coming up. We don't know. So the substantial damages that the jury ordered Meta to pay should send a clear message to big tech executives that no company is beyond the reach of the law. Policymakers and law enforcement officials across the country can help make this verdict a turning point in the fight for children's safety. This is a watershed moment for every parent concerned about what could happen to their kids when they go online, and this victory belongs to them. Essentially, this verdict follows more than 2 years of litigation by the New Mexico Department of Justice to hold Meta accountable for its dishonesty and design choices that harm children. Essentially, 2023, the New Mexico DOJ initiated an investigation of Meta's platforms to protect children from sexual abuse, online solicitation, and other harms. And internal Meta documents and testimony obtained by the NMDOJ in the litigation reveals repeated warnings from Meta employees and outside child safety experts about dangers present on Meta platforms. The reason I got interested in this is because apparently the investigation was that the police department, essentially, or was it the Department of Justice? Essentially, the DOJ went undercover as people on the internet, right? And essentially played the role of a child, and they gathered how easy it was for pedophiles and predators to be connected to children. They, from what I understood, what they were essentially arguing is that the way that the app works, or the way that these platforms are designed, is that if you like children, you will be connected to children, is essentially what they're saying. So, going back, the evidence presented at trial, which included internal Meta documents and testimony from former Meta employees, law enforcement officials, and New Mexico educators, established that Meta's design features enabled pedophiles and predators to engage in child sexual exploitation on Meta's platforms. Evidence from those witnesses, as well as other industry experts, also demonstrated that Meta intentionally designed its platforms to addict young people, and contrary to Meta's public commitment, exposes them to dangerous content related to eating disorders, self-harm, suicide, etc., etc. Adding on to that point, one criticism that was incurred by this investigation is that after all of the evidence was gathered, it's not like they went to go arrest those predators that they found while pretending to be a child online. They were just kind of like, well, this is evidence, but we're not going to go arrest those people. And it's like, how? Oh, wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute. Shouldn't y'all go get them? That's what I found really interesting. But I was kind of like, surely you guys should go get them. But surely they should go get them. Because even if it's a thing of, but you were like soliciting from who you thought was a child. But that's tough because it wasn't a real child in that case. But it's like, just because they're connected to you, who's not a real child, and you're undercover, doesn't mean that they're not actually being connected to children. Anywho, the New Mexico DOJ's final claim against Meta will be heard via a bench trial that is scheduled to begin on May 4th, so it's coming up. During the bench trial, the New Mexico DOJ will argue its public nuisance case and seek injunctive reliefs that requires Meta to pay additional damages and make specific changes to its platforms and company operations, including enacting effective age verification, removing predators from oh my god, I can't speak English today. It's just not my language for the day. Removing predators from the platform, and protecting minors from encrypted communications that shield bad actors. So, that's that case. My thoughts and my feelings about this is that I found it that it's really cool how it was investigated. I like that it was more like a, hey, by the way, you guys are claiming this, but this is what's actually happening. It wasn't just like a class action lawsuit where someone could come forward and say that, hey, it's this and that. So it's like, it differs a little bit from Kaylee's case, but the matter still stands. It's like, the way that these social media platforms are designed are to be addictive, or to connect are not safe for children, because not only are they addictive, but if you are a child and if you're a predator and you like children, you will be connected to children. If you're a child, Meta will connect you to predators because that's what they want, and they want you to be on the app. So the algorithm automatically be like, oh, so you like child sex exploitation? Cool. We are going to connect you to children so you can exploit them. And it's the children who are missing out on that and who are gonna like lose out on that fact. I think um I don't know. I have thoughts on the age verification thing because I personally think that you should not have my ID as a social media platform. That's crazy. Why should I have to give you my identification in order for me to enter your social media platform? Surely that's messed up. It's like you already have so much information on me. Don't like the algorithm can already predict so much on me. It already knows so much about me. Like, please do not further exacerbate that by actually having my identification with my full government name and surname, full government birthday, birth date, place of birth. No. ID number. Please, that's insane. I think that's insane. I don't think it's a good idea. And like I've seen a lot of them. Like there's one in the UK, there's one in Australia, there's a lot in the US, and I don't know if that's the solution. All I know is that from both of these landmark cases, what I can say is that I still don't think they go far enough. 375 million for this New Mexico case is absolutely gorgeous. Like now we're talking. I'm sorry, California. You need to. I don't know who the judge was, but come on, man needs to like up the prices. Are you kidding me? 6 million? Get out of here. We want to see real numbers. Come on, poor Kaylee, man. But yeah, no, I think these are good. This is like we're going in the right direction because the law is persecuting them. But at the same time, if lawmakers don't actually change the laws, how are you going to force, how are you going to force these social media companies to actually change the way that they design things? You're just not. And luckily, the common law is flexible enough that you can interpret things widely, and these lawsuits obviously like provide a huge precedent in how things can be prosecuted in the future. But it's not enough. Like you still need, like you can't just base everything off of that precedent because one day the law could change, right? So we need the precedent can change rather. We need actual written down things in order for these platforms to essentially change their behavior and change the way that they design their platforms for use. And that's literally what needs to happen. Deadass. Next segment. We are back. I'm now gonna give my overall thoughts. I've seen many different things. Like I mentioned earlier, I was talking about Taylor Lorenz and how they were talking about Section 230. Essentially, Section 230 they describe it as like this First Amendment for the internet, and it essentially states that social media platforms cannot be liable for what its users post on it. Meaning that if you post criminal activity on your on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, those companies cannot be liable for the crime that you are doing. You're going to be held criminally liable for the crime because you posted it, not because they allowed you to post it on their platform. Does that make sense? So, essentially, what certain people are arguing is that for the potential repeal of that, right? So Congress wants to get rid, well, Heritage Foundation wants to, I sound mad conspiratorial. Heritage Foundation, conservative think tank movement that wrote Project 2025, that essentially is the blueprint of what the Trump administration is now, right? They want to get rid of Section 230, which is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. And it protects online platforms from being treated as publisher or speaker of content provided by third parties and allows them to moderate content without becoming liable for it. So, what people are now saying is that if you repeal Section 230, you will have an internet that is completely changed by it, because they might try to censor the internet more and more. Hence why I was talking about how age verification is also internet censorship, and how this could become internet censorship, as well as internet surveillance, because as soon as you tell these platforms that, hey, by the way, what you say or do, Meta or Google or whoever could become liable for it, what are they going to try to do? Surveil what you say and do. And they can then, to avoid being liable, give that information to the government. I sound mad conspiratorial, but I don't know. I was like seeing a bunch of different things on it. Not only was I seeing those two cases that we looked at previously in the other two segments, about how that could also be sort of like a jump towards trying to repeal that in the US, but I don't know. There's people who argue for it, say that it would hold, there would be more accountability, you know, like, oh, you'll be able to, like, you know, be accountable. Social media platforms will be accountable for, finally, for online harm. But on the other side of it is that it will devastate smaller providers and change the internet structure, because it's like, will you be safe saying what you say on the internet if you know that someone's watching and someone could potentially use what you say on the internet against you? For example, ICE, or what is it called? CERCO? CERNCO? They're trying to like, they're trying to introduce this thing now in Europe, where it's like the Europe of ICE, CERCO. I don't even know what it's called, but maybe I'll look into it. Where it's like, if ICE knows that you're texting your mother who's in the US illegally with you through Instagram or through WhatsApp, guess what? ICE can show up at your doorstep. You know, just things like that, which I'm like, the internet is no longer a safe space, and we've always known that. And we've always known that the internet that, I mean, we talk about nowadays is normally like, what, only 10% of it, essentially. Then you have like the dark web and whatnot and hoo-ha and da-da-da. But it's like, if you actually, like I was saying previously, if you actually want to make the internet a safer place, you actually have to have laws that actually allow for social media platforms to force social media platforms rather to change how they design their platforms in order for them to not be addictive, in order for predators to not come out, be so easily connected to children, because that's what the algorithm has picked up that they like on. So they're gonna feed them children's content, and guess what's gonna happen from that? Predators and pedophiles are going to like reach out to them, and we don't need that. And crazy enough, I was even watching a documentary the other day about sex trafficking, and a lot of the women, it's about this woman who, like, she was sex trafficked by the age of 9, and then essentially she was the one that got punished, not her pimps and stuff, right? And she was saying that a lot of these young people that are trafficked nowadays, whether they're like being trafficked as to work as pimps, or to work as sex workers, at underage sex workers, which is just like statutory rape. Um, a lot of them are recruited through Instagram, which is insane. And they were essentially arguing that like, yeah, like 50% of Instagram, like if they actually like were able to like get rid of porn content, predators, things like that, half of Instagram would be gone. Which I believe. So this is what I mean by it's like paying damages is not enough. Everyone's talking like at some point it's like justice is not damages. Justice is actual actions that need to be taken in order for society to be a safer place, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean going to jail. That doesn't necessarily mean paying damages. That means like making actual proper structural changes, legislative changes, aka we need to write a bill. We need to draft a proposal, bill proposal, something in order to force these social media companies to actually change how they do things. Like that's just like how it needs to be done. And yeah, let's repeal this law because yeah, we're gonna be able to protect children, but at the same time, you're gonna be able to like watch what I say. And if, for example, crazy idea, like you wait for it, you say something bad about a certain country that's committing genocide, and the government can then use that against you. Whoa. Whoa. This is what I mean by nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing is a coincidence, right? And I've said this before. It's like you want to suppress the internet, you want to censor the internet, you want to surveil the internet in order to have to control people and what they say and what they do, in order to control behavior, right? That is the whole point of living in a modern state, right? So you do that by how? Controlling, surveilling the internet, making it a less safer and open place. It's like we are supposed to be democratizing the internet so that it can be a place where everybody has access to information freely, without repercussions, and without fear of of what they and without exactly, without fear. But what's happening now is that a lot of these age verification laws and oh yeah, you have to be under 16 and then we're gonna censor these things because it's against community guidelines and da-da-da, and it's like, who was setting these guidelines? Who said that age verification is what we need? You can have children can be on the internet. It just has to be safe enough for them to be on there. Like I said, I feel like I'm chronically online. Like, I don't even know how I had a job because the way I'm chronically online is crazy. Even when I had a job, I was still chronically online. Like, no lie. I feel like this is gonna be an ongoing conversation, especially on my tech episodes during this like upcoming season, because I couldn't possibly fit everything that I want to say in this specific episode. Like, I will sound like a conspiracy theorist. It's just not possible. But what I will say is that I have way more thoughts, I have way more feelings. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. This episode is specifically about two cases. KGM versus Meta and Alphabet. Then it was the state of New Mexico versus Meta. That is what this episode was about. And this specific segment was about how I think what we can leave this segment on is that if you're going to prosecute social media companies for how their design model is harmful to children, don't make them pay damages, make them change how they design the platform. Thank you. Next segment. this this season will be a lot of different things. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see what else happens. I think I want to talk a little bit more. Like, I'm going to talk a lot more about tech because I feel like tech has done a lot recently. Like, probably going to have an episode about Palantir. Probably going to have an episode, and the Palantir episode is going to be rich. I'm already putting it, pardon, I'm already putting it together in my mind. It's going to be a rich one. I can feel it. But you know what? That might be the one that gets me cancelled. If someone comes back to like listen to this. But all in all, like I was previously saying, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to say everything that I want to say today. All I want to say is that just two things. I think there's two takeaways from this. One of them is, if you're gonna have social media platforms, if you're going to take sort of social media platforms to court, don't punish them through damages and have them pay stupid amounts of money that's not going to actually like do anything, but have actual changes to how their platforms are designed. Force them to change how their platforms are designed to make the internet a safer place. The second thing is trying to censor and surveil how people use the internet under the guise of protecting the children is not going to work. You wish to silence people's voices that you don't want to hear, saying things that you don't want them to say, and you want to use the internet by doing that. Because in what world, sorry, Kestama, but in what world is having people under the age of 16 not be on the internet helpful? Helpful to who? What are you trying to do? What is the reason? This is why I'm like, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it really all boils down to they're trying to silence certain people's voices. In this case, it could be Palestinian voices or other people they don't like. And they're trying to use this age verification thing to be like, no, we just want these people off the internet. And it's like, do you want people off the internet, or do you just not want young people to have access to certain information? You just want them to have access to information that you want to give them. I'll never forget Hillary Clinton being like, we need to target TikTok. And it's like, why did that guy buy TikTok? Why was it acquired? What is the issue? It all goes back to surveillance, censorship, wanting to control wanting to censor the internet and people and social media platforms, and for it to not be a fully democratic place where people can share ideas. That is literally what it comes off as. So I think those are my 2 cents for this episode. All I can say is thank you for listening. I am so glad to be back. As you can hear me say, what should you expect next? I did a cool episode with a friend, so I think you guys should expect that next. So I'll see you next week. You already know what I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be a lot of tech, but we'll see how we go along. I might make it a shorter season, just because I can, because I think 15 was a bit crazy. But anywho, please like, comment, subscribe, catch us wherever you get your podcast, as well as follow me on Instagram, because I'm back on there. People are going to make fun of my name, like no one understands it, but it's LXNDRZNDML. If you know my gavo, it makes sense to you. If you don't, not my problem. But yeah, please listen to this wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the beautiful things. Will I join TikTok? Unlikely. Unless I'm forced to. So, don't expect me there. I'm gonna tell you that for real, for real. Anywho, thank you for listening as always, listener. I love you. I'm so glad to be back. Bye.